Our session this afternoon is on education, media, and innovation. And we're looking at internet governance and local digital content and internet entrepreneurism or entrepreneurship. Might be another noun that is appropriate there. I am happy to pass over the moderation for this afternoon to Mr. Bevil Wooding. He is the Caribbean liaison for ARIN, the American Registry for Internet Numbers, and Bevil is a frequent collaborator with the CTU, and he would take us through this panel. So, Bevil, it's all yours.
Thanks, Nigel, and good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists. This session will be looking at the issue of education, media, and innovation. And I've asked the panelists, and they've all agreed to share perspectives as it relates to their line of sight into the subject. And we have three very excellent panelists with us. We have Mr. Hector Fire, Head of Policy Programs and Government Outreach Latin America and for Facebook. We have Mr. Bennette Thomas, the Director of Telecommunications and Technology with the Government of Dominica. And we have Ms. Franka Phillip, a media consultant, journalist par excellence, and a small business entrepreneur herself and an innovator. And these panelists are going to share their perspectives on this subject. But I wanted to set a bit of context before we got into it, because I think all of the sessions so far in this year's Caribbean Internet Governance Forum have made it clear that the COVID-19 pandemic is really shaping in an unprecedented way the nature of the use of technology across the region. All of the strategies around how we open back sectors, economies, borders have some technology and internet-related component attached to it. And our theme for this year's CIGF, Accelerating Digital Transformation, Internet Governance Matters, could not be more relevant to the subject being tackled by this afternoon's panel. The issues of education and the role of the media have been at the center of most of the discussions around how we respond and what are the priority areas as it relates to how we come out on the other side of the transformations that are taking place as a result of this pandemic. The education sector and the media are just two sectors that have all had to rely more heavily on digital services. Schools have had to grapple with very real issues of access, affordability, devices, modes of information delivery as it relates to the new social distancing and public health requirements. And they have also had to understand and deploy very quickly new modalities in terms of not just remote school, but remote work. And the media sector is no different. Earlier today, we heard about the issues surrounding Caribbean cloud services. In the last session, we heard about the transformations taking place in the tourism sector. And so for this session, we'll turn our attention to education, media, and innovation, because the technology component of the transformation process and the internet governance component have perhaps arguably never been more important, and the need for more effective local internet governance never more urgent. And I want to start off, each of the panelists have been asked to restrict their initial presentations to about 15 minutes. I want to start off with our colleague from Facebook, because we can all see that the reliance on technology is bringing a whole new wave of innovation, not just internationally, but right here in the Caribbean. And we want to get a sense of how that is being seen through the eyes of one of the world's largest social media platforms, and what they're seeing globally, and if possible as well, sharing what they're seeing regionally. But Bennette, if you're ready and available, I think you can also give a sense of what is happening, not just through Dominica, but what you're seeing as well in the Eastern Caribbean. Bennette, are you on and available and ready to go?
Okay, yeah, I'm there.
All right. Nice to see you, sir.
All right. Well, I said before, but let me once again say thanks for the opportunity, and obviously as I said on many occasions, when I'm in the presence of you and other stalwarts, I feel good. So I'm glad to be here. Okay, so what I spoke to Gary and the rest about is, I believe my presentation is going to be focused on what the World Bank is doing in the 4 islands. And I think that has a very significant impact on what we are going to do in the region if we're talking about digital transformation. In fact, the program that the World Bank has is entitled the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. And in there, there are a number of components, and critically, as we go through this whole process of education, as you see, your topic is education and the media, we need to ensure that we have a new way of educating our people. And that has to begin from even kindergarten, because we're in a totally new environment. The COVID environment has shown us that there are some lessons to be learned. And everybody now is moving rapidly towards the online services, and everything is now online. Students are now forced to grapple with how to deal with online services. How do I do my work? Even in the program that we have on the digital project we have locally, there is an education hub that we put for students so they can interact with their teachers and so. And all COVID has done is to expand that further and more like a steroid. So the digital transformation, the digital transformation project by the World Bank is an initiative to transform the economies of those 4 islands digitally. And the understanding is once they have finalized and fine-tuned that process within those 4 islands, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and Grenada, I believe St. Kitts also, no, those 4, then it will be morphed to the other island of the Caribbean. So what I'm going to do here for the time being is to give you just a synopsis of what they are doing on that project, the different components of the project, and you will see that even as we move into that whole digital space, our curriculum may have to change. Certain subject matters that we never at all did, because of the new environment, we have to now begin to teach that to our students. So let me just go quickly into this. I think it's this one. Yeah, so yeah, I'm Bennette. Can you see that, Bevin? Can you see it? Can you guys see that?
Yes, we're seeing it.
Okay. So let's take a quick look at the digital transformation project. According to the synopsis here, it is to improve the enabling environment that can help unlock potential digital dividends and the need to support investment in skills and entrepreneurship development at the regional level. The Caribbean region shares standards in education and training, such as through the Caribbean Examinations Council and the Caribbean Vocational Qualifications, and also has entrepreneurship support programs at the regional level. Building on that regional approach will be beneficial to supporting digital skills development and entrepreneurship support programs, as it will help provide the requisite skill for such programs to be sustainable in the long run. So let me just take a quick look at some of the components. There are 4 major components, I believe. And the first one is called the digital ecosystem. That encompasses some subcomponents, and one of them is telecommunications. And under telecommunications, we are looking at a legal and regulatory environment, institutions, and capacity. And the way the program is set up, there are regional components and there are national components. This telecommunications is a regional component, and the agency responsible for that is ECTEL, the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority. So all the legal and regulatory framework to support telecommunication activities in that ecosystem will be managed by ECTEL. And you and I know that it is very, very critical that we have, if we are going to be competitive, we are going to have a proper system in place for even for our entire digital thrust, then the telecommunications infrastructure, the legal and regulatory environment has to be suited for us to do so. And under that component, they say it is supposed to support for improvement in the legal and regulatory environment governing telecommunications and electronic communication service delivery. Now, interestingly, in Dominica, and in fact in the same ECTEL member countries, we had a harmonized legislation that we call the Telecommunications Act. So each of those countries, and I can clearly recall, Donny de Freitas, and Donny was the one who spearheaded this, and may his soul rest in peace. Donny spearheaded this whole process when we were seeking to develop a regulatory framework in the 4 island states, and those, we had to harmonize them through the parliaments of the various countries. And that we call it the Telecommunications Act. That was in 2000. As we speak, we are now 20 years later, we are going to repeal the Telecommunications Act in those 4 countries. So ECTEL has submitted to us what we done because of the emerging technologies and the way that the world is moving now from the whole technological framework. We are moving from a telecommunications framework to an electronic communications framework. And therefore the necessary legislation as we speak has already been not enacted, but they have drafted them. And hopefully by the end of September, the target is for the end of September to have those legislation enacted in the respective parliaments of those 4 countries. That is critical to ensure that we have the necessary framework to do business in the region. Now, you'll notice they said that we have to review and implement, support, and prepare, adopt the Eastern Caribbean Electronic Communications Bill, you call it the EC Bill. And that is being done as we speak. We have establishment of a quality of service monitoring and enforcement methodology. We have to ensure that the service providers, when we say we have laws, that we can enforce those laws. Then there's another one called Digital Financial Services, another component of that whole project. And it looks at the legal and regulatory environment, institutions and capacity. And the lead agency for that is the ECCB, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. All of us are aware by now that the ECCB has taken the lead role in trying to have cryptocurrencies and digital money and that kind of thing. And as you see here, the project will include support to improve the policy, legal and regulatory frameworks around payment systems and the digital financial services to improve the ability of citizens and businesses in the ECCU member states to pay for goods and services online. And that is where, again, that is very critical in the whole issue of entrepreneurship in the region. We should be able to easily make payments online, and the ECCB is the key regional entity in charge of this. And just to run through here, they need to upgrade their regulatory framework to clarify the legal status of e-money issuance in the Eastern Caribbean region, and to support licensing, oversight, and sanctioning framework. In addition, support to harmonize national legal frameworks pertaining to licensing and requirements for non-bank payment service providers. Okay, and I can send the document later. The other major component of the project is cybersecurity, data protection, and privacy. And the lead agency for that in the region is Impacts. And that is the security arm of the OECS. Now, we cannot overemphasize the importance of cybersecurity and data protection when we are doing services online. If we are going to move out, and even this is one of the things when I spoke earlier about, when you spoke about education, it is critical that we begin to look at the syllabus and make cybersecurity, data protection as critical aspect of our education system if we are going to move into a digital space. And all of us are fully aware of the impact of cybersecurity and the hackers and so forth. So we need to begin to teach our people, and we start from the primary school, the whole issue of cybersecurity, data protection. Otherwise, we will be there doing work and we'll be in serious problems accordingly. And it says here, review of national and regional cybersecurity and cybercrime policy, legislation and regulation, and institutional structures with the implementation and support for recommendations at national and regional level. One of the things that we are discussing in this program is that every island in this program, Dominica, St. Vincent and Grenada, should establish a national CERT or CCERT. And that is critical if we are going to manage that whole process going forward. So we need to have national certs, whereas impacts will deal with regional policies and legislation and so forth. And that is very critical. We need to, one of the problems we have found out is that it should be a spoke and wheel format so that the regional agency does not duplicate efforts on the national level. Another thing is the issue of the economy of scale. We find out, for example, why would Dominica, for example, should end up building a CERT, which can be costly. Antigua does a CERT, St. Lucia does a CERT, Barbados does a CERT, etc. When we can come together and say, okay, what are the common regional effort that can be done at a regional level, which will allow impact to do, and for reactive actions that are happening on the ground, then you can have a mini CERT in the respective islands to do reactive work, whereas impacts would do proactive and other legislative issues dealing with cybersecurity. So that are some of the models that we are looking at. There's the issue of the digital infrastructure of platforms and services, and that is where we begin to ensure that we have the necessary infrastructure to facilitate on the online platforms that are required. There's also a GIS platform for their standards for geospatial information through implementation of a regional diagnostic and action plan, prioritizing and financing key actions, and formulation of national action plans for implementation of regional standards. Critically is the issue of digital skills and entrepreneurship. There has been a big debate going on as to what do we define, how do we define digital skills? And once we have a proper definition of digital skills, then we should be able to know how to develop our people. And that component here is to finance the development of a cadre of advanced digital skills professionals within the region to drive digital industry development and innovation, including attracting foreign direct investment, filling advanced digital skills gaps faced by industries within the region, and facilitating remote working opportunities for individuals with global firms and clients while residing within the Eastern Caribbean region. And that is very important, because what we found out is many times we bring in a lot of experts from outside when we can have persons trained in the region. And we have people already in the region that can do that work, but we can also facilitate remote working by individuals who are in the diaspora, for example, or we can use the big firms out there, the Fortune 500 firms, and they can use and facilitate work in the region. And we have the development of an advanced digital skills job program, providing access to globally recognized training and certification programs in demand for global industry and support for soft skills, coaching, marketing, and placement with regional and global firms. And the issue of digital entrepreneurship support. This will develop a holistic regional digital entrepreneurship strategy for the Eastern Caribbean countries that outlines the role of government and the private sector and includes analysis of local supply and global sectoral demand, as well as promising practices from small island developing states. And I chose to look at what do we call, I just quickly run through this here. I found the definition for digital skills, and it says the ability to find, evaluate, utilize, share, and create content using information and communication technologies and the internet. So that is where, if we use that definition, we need to develop our people from school to be able to develop content. Too many times with what we do in the region, we are more consumers than producers of content. And we have sufficient expertise and capacities in the region to be able to develop applications and so forth. And developing, there are too many issues, too many problems in the region. I teach a class in ICT and I tell the students, find what your problems are and develop applications to solve it. And we can do that, but we tend to like to decide, okay, we'll wait for somebody to do something for us when we have the skill. Or if we do not have the skills, the education system is failing us. So we need to ensure that the school system, our tertiary institution, UE and all the other academic institutions in the region, revisit their syllabus to ensure that we have the necessary courses and subject matters to facilitate a digital transformation in the economies of our country. And at this point, I'll stop here and maybe entertain some questions going forward.
No, what we will do is we'll have the questions at the end of the three presentations because we want to pull together the picture. And I really appreciate the depth of activity taking place in the OECS because it mirrors very much what I understand is happening in countries across the region. So that gives us a really good sense of the kinds of considerations that that the governments have to be wrestling with and the realities of constraints of resource, but also the promise that the region still has the capacity and the potential and the intellect to navigate these things if we get the equation right. So I want to turn next to Hector. Hector, are you ready? Can you get your camera back on for us? Great. This is Hector Fire from Facebook, and Hector is going to carry us through some of the observations Facebook has been making and share some perspectives as well on what they're seeing in the space. So over to you, Hector. Welcome. On mute.
Great. Thank you, Bevil. Thank you, Bennette, for such a great presentation on the importance of digital skills, an agenda that we share on the importance at Facebook. So I'm going to share with you a presentation that I prepared specifically for this meeting. Can you see my screen? Perfect, thank you. So my name is Hector Falla. I live in Mexico City with my wife and my 3 kids. I'm very honored to have been invited to such an important forum and to have a conversation with the leaders that are defining the vision that will take the Caribbean to the next level. My job at Facebook is to undertake initiatives that support the economic, social, and cultural development of Latin America and the Caribbean. And in other words, I work every day to bring technology closer to people. And this is one of the reasons why I feel so fortunate to see how digital technology and digital skills are helping millions of small businesses around the world to evolve in an era of unprecedented change, complexity, and competition. Why discussing entrepreneurship is important? Because SMEs represent more than 99.5% of companies in the Latin American and the Caribbean region is such an important source of employment of gross domestic product, but also of well-being of our people. So let me share with you one of those stories that fueled my work and inspired me because of how it uses technology to improve people's lives. SMBs are the heartbeat of our communities, and this is Sausa. Saura found in the production of organic foods the ideal opportunity to generate impact, positive impact for the community, to help local producers, and to offer organic and healthy food to its customers. Terra Verde is the result of Saura's constant search to generate an awareness of healthy eating. And with this in mind, she sought out small local organic growers and started a business with more than 40 products. Her idea was to start her initiative only through Facebook and Instagram, and she found in Terra Verde the way to turn her passion into her profession. In her words, if you want to undertake a business, spend time seeking what you really are passionate about, because doing what makes us happy is what brings out the best of ourselves and where we generate the value of our society. Of course, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. You need digital skills to take advantage of what the digital world and the digital economy can provide to you. So my agenda for today is that I will share with you some highlights of the Global State of Small and Medium Businesses report, which is a study that raises SMBs' voices as well as maps how their situation is changing. Also, I will also talk to you about the efforts we're making to provide resources to the millions of businesses that use our platform so they keep doing what they do to generate value within their communities and weather the storm we're facing. In partnership with the World Bank and the OECD, we have developed a global survey in order to better diagnose the economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic on SMBs and provide decision makers with updated information on the evolution of the economic reactivation. Over the next months, SMBs in more than 50 countries and regions are being surveyed monthly regarding business operations in the context of COVID-19. This report will be delivered in 6 waves to capture the impacts of the pandemic on the challenges of SMBs, as well as adjustments being implemented by these in response to the crisis. So this report presents findings from the second survey carried out from June 24th to June 30th and captures the views of more than 25,000 business owners, managers, and employees in over 50 countries. During this period, governments around the globe have begun to loosen lockdown restrictions, and SMBs have begun to resume their operations, although in a limited manner. So let's go to the findings. Compared with the wave one data from the end of May, we see that SMBs are reopening and that closure rates are lowering. Nevertheless, more than a quarter of SMBs remain closed in our regions. By June, 27% of SMBs in Latin America and the Caribbean and 31% of SMBs in the sub-Saharan Africa remain closed. Staying at home is, of course, a safer option, which puts SMBs in a difficult trade-off. The proportion of SMBs that reported a year-on-year fall in sales remain significant. And we can see in this figure that it has not significantly changed from the first to the second wave in our region. This figure shows an 11 percentage point recovery in a year-on-year sales between the 2 periods from the regions of Middle East and North Africa and for North America. Aggregate data shows that the tourism sector is one of the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. All sectors have experienced a decline in sales in more than 50% without a significant recovery from wave 1 to wave 2. We can also see that sales reduction for the information and communication sector has been the least impacted and shows as a slightly recovery. We still see that SMBs across all sectors are having difficulties retaining employees, of course, and this is one of the hardest things in the context of the pandemic. We can see the situation improving for tourism and construction sectors. And again, the information and communication sector, along with the services sector, is the least affected by the pandemic. Yet, 25% of SMBs of these sectors still report reductions in headcount, which is really harmful for our countries. So the main challenges for SMBs that SMBs are facing globally are lack of demand and of goods and services and low cash flow. For Latin America, the main challenge is a sustained lack of demand of goods and services, while, for example, in the sub-Saharan Africa region, low cash flow is referenced as the main challenge for SMBs. Here you can see that for example, in the case of Ghana, to see specific country level insights, you'll see that 66% of female-led SMBs on Facebook are operational or engaging in any revenue generating activities. This is important because we see that SMBs that are digitalized, that are already working in the digital environment, have been demonstrating a higher capacity to deal with the challenges of COVID-19. You can see here that 52% of operational SMBs on Facebook report that more than a quarter of their sales were made digitally in the past month, which is really interesting. Now in Kenya, what's happening in Kenya? Kenya is one of the countries that has been hardest hit. You can see that 75% of operational SMBs on Facebook report that their sales this year are lower than the last year. However, almost half of them say that when they are on Facebook, they are reporting that more than a quarter of their sales are being made digitally. What's happening in Nigeria? In Nigeria, we see that SMBs are much more optimistic than SMBs, for example, in Latin America or the rest of the African continent. 73% of operational SMBs on Facebook feel optimistic about the future of their business. What's happening in the rest of Africa? We see that 69% of female-led SMBs on Facebook are operational or engaging in any revenue generating activities, which tell us that those SMBs that took the advantages of working online have resisted with much more strength the impact of the pandemic. So this crisis has unfolded very rapidly, and in this unprecedented time in Facebook, we are moving as quickly as we can to help keeping enterprises connected with their communities and to help online businesses to learn digital skills and harness the potential of the digital economy. At Facebook, we believe that the Caribbean can benefit from technology and communication to face present and future challenges. As a mitigation response to the economic and social impact derived from social distancing, we have migrated at Facebook the trainings that we used to do in person, like the one that we did in Trinidad and Tobago last year. And through specialized programs, we help SMBs to acquire the necessary digital skills to harness the benefits of the current e-commerce expansion. In our region, the share of female-led SMBs is very high. She Means Business is an initiative to support, as Facebook's long-term commitment, female-owned businesses, from how to start a female-owned business through digital skills trainings to how to sustain the business through financial education. Every day across Latin America and the Caribbean, female entrepreneurs are making history. With this event, Ella Hace Historia, or She Means Business, We hope to help them build a more prosperous and inclusive region. And this is why next September 3rd and 4th, in collaboration with Cisneros Group, our authorized sales partner in Latin America and the Caribbean, Facebook will be having a Shimi's Business digital event in the Caribbean to celebrate female entrepreneurship in the region. This will be live, and anyone from the Caribbean will be able to join and have these resources. Also, we will be having Impulsa con Facebook events. Impulsa con Facebook are events that we provide digital skills through digital education, and we will be hosting training sessions in Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and Dominican Republic. We want to enable entrepreneurs to leverage our platform to leap forward and reap the benefits of a digital economy and society in their everyday lives. So this is why we're invested in programs like Boost with Facebook. We're committed to supporting businesses facing new challenges stemming from COVID-19 pandemic. So in this website that any one of you can access, any entrepreneur in the Caribbean can access, you will find tips, trainings, and tools to help businesses stay active and connected with customers, especially during the crisis. And last, least but not important, I want to close my participation with a quote that I love from Nelson Mandela. He said that courage is not the absence of fear, it's inspiring others to move beyond it. And in these unprecedented times, I know that many SMBs are dealing with very difficult times. And I know that fear can sometimes immobilize many people. But if we inspire others to move beyond fear, we'll be doing a lot to improve the well-being of our people in Latin America and the Caribbean. That's all on my side. I thank you, and I thank very much this great institution for this amazing opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. That was excellent. And the information very useful to shaping perspectives on how it relates to and applies to the Caribbean context. I'm sure as we proceed in this panel, there'll be some more questions coming at you. So stay connected, and let's see if we can inspire others to move beyond the nature of these times into a place of hope. One of the sectors that actually plays a big part in determining the psychology of how people respond to times of crisis would be the media. And I want to invite Franka to come on screen and share with us some of her perspectives on what's been happening inside of the media industry, not just in terms of the technology and implications of the pandemic and all of the swirling technological requirements that have come upon journalists and media practitioners. But I also want to get some of your insight into what do you see as a way forward, some of the trends or some of the perspectives that will shape the media sector of the near future as a result of these transitions that we're inside of right now. So over to you, Franka.
Hello, Bevil. Thank you for inviting me. Don't mind that is last minute. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I have to tell you, I'm a bit allergic to them. But I'm going to try to, within the short time that I had, I'm going to try to pull together a view of how the pandemic has affected the way that our news organizations have operated, and the way that they have responded, and some possibilities for the future. So first of all, let me just shout out all the media personnel working in the region. We have had an unprecedented time. Those of us particularly, or those who are particularly working in newsrooms, have had it extremely difficult, mainly because a lot of people have found that it's so much information and it's so much to do that newsrooms have at times seemed to be a little overwhelmed. And this is not unique to the Caribbean. I've heard this from my former colleagues in the United Kingdom. I've also heard it from my friends who are in the media in the United States. So first of all, Let's just say that journalists are a subset of the society. And where you in society, you will have some people who are very media savvy, very quick to catch on, very quick to embrace technology. You'll also have those who are not as savvy and who probably at the time felt, well, okay, this is just an adjunct to my job. I don't need to be on Twitter. I don't need to be on Instagram. It's just wasting my time, or I just don't need to use it for my job. Well, let's just say that journalists and reporters are now forced to embrace that element of technology. Social media has become very critical in the way that reporting is taking place. So that's number one. Number two, because of the COVID restrictions, many people have started to work from home. And what most of our media organizations have done, they have provided the tools for journalists to do so. So for example, I know for at least 2 newsrooms that it is possible to do your story at home and actually publish it online from your home. Of course, based with some editorial oversight, but that is very possible now. One newsroom that I spoke to said that this technology had been in play for about 2 years, and I know that is true because I used to work at that newsroom. But now with COVID and everybody having to stay home, having to do interviews on the phone and probably via Zoom, this is the way that they've been moving. So it's forced everybody now to embrace a certain kind of technology and to become, I guess, less afraid of using this technology, just going brave and going bold. So yes, so there's more remote work. That means there's a heavier reliance on technology. And with that, while it sounds nice to be able to work from home, the playing field, as one editor told me, is not extremely level. Depending on where you live, for example, your internet provider may not be as reliable as you would like. Whereas in the office, if the internet goes down, there's instantly a backup. So you hardly ever suffer from those kind of transmission issues where you're not able to, use the internet. That hardly happens at the office. So this is one thing that it has shown up. It has shown up the inequities in internet service and internet service provision. One of the other things is that in some organizations where telephones have been issued to the reporters, they have been trained to use their phones differently. So for example, reporters are now doing some stand-up pieces. So you will be recording something and you are trained now in how to speak to the camera, how to speak to your phone. So that you don't just capture an event. What you do is you actually report it. And this is for all types of journalists, not just broadcast. This is for people who are writing blogs. This is for people who are also generally print journalists. So in that way, it is obvious now that a digital first approach has emerged as the way forward. And by that, I mean, let us explain what that means. In the past, and in the recent past, if you wrote for a newspaper, your focus was getting your story to your editor, and it goes on a page and it goes into the paper the next day. Now, that is not the case. Now, what most people are asking their reporters to do, write a short, concise brief. And once you write a short, concise brief, that can go online, and you can have a tagline saying more to follow, so that you have already captured your audience. That means that, okay, I know that Paper X on their website is doing so and so, and this normally appears on their Facebook pages. I have to also say that Facebook is actually the main outlet where people in Trinidad and Tobago get their news. They get their news mainly on social media, and Facebook is the main one in that discovery. So this is also something that I have found that happened in different parts of the Caribbean. It's happened abroad as well, that people have had to change their style from waiting for the afternoon to do their stories. They've had to embrace digital first. And so they're now really a lot more clued in as to how the impact that their stories will have. So yes, we have, what I've heard from editors is that there's also greater productivity. This happens mainly because there's the elimination of a long commute. If you have to spend 2 hours commuting and it's public transport or however it is, it means that that's 2 hours you could be doing some research, you could be following up on some calls. So that has actually made people a little more productive in one way. It also means that you can manage your time better at home. So for example, one editor said to me that she's glad that she can work at home because with schools being closed, it means that her daughter is able to be at home with her. She doesn't have to worry about babysitters. And I think this is the case throughout. People who have children have been really, glad that they can work at home and monitor their children. And of course, it means that they've had to manage their children because of depending on the age of their children will know, okay, mommy's working now or daddy's working now. So let's have some time later. So it's also about time and self-management. Another thing that has caused the increase in productivity is the fact that people are now becoming more accountable. And this accountability is because newspapers particularly have set targets on the number of stories that you have to write a day. And you have to provide a PDF in some cases to your supervisor to show how closely you are following or reaching your targets. So I think in the main, what COVID has done is it has sharpened our journalists with regard to the way they work, their workflow, their ability to do more in a shorter time. However, there is a lot more work to do because, of course, this is unprecedented. It's a pandemic, and it means that there's a lot of information coming to them. One of the things that has shown up especially in Trinidad and Tobago, we have these pressers, these press conferences that are held by the Ministry of Health, where the Minister of Health will speak, the Minister of National Security, and sometimes the Prime Minister. They will all be on these press conferences. But what people have been complaining about, what the audiences have been complaining about, is that sometimes the questions are a bit repetitive, or the questions might be quote unquote stupid. I don't believe that there are many stupid questions, but I think what this has done is it has shown up for some people the clear absence of subject area experts in the media. Most people in the media are, I would say, generalists. So while it's easy to pick up and follow politics, for example, or to be a feature writer, or to be a straight news writer, having a scientific background is not something that you would find many people, many journalists come with a very deep scientific background. So it has shown up that in the newsrooms, what has to happen is they need to embrace more subject area experts, probably from the universities, probably from PAHO, from WHO. But it is something that is a challenge, and it has shown up. It's shown deficits in the access to the subject area experts. And sometimes you find that journalists try to figure these things out on their own, and the result has not always been very positive. So the other side to that is that, yes, expert resources do exist, but as one editor said to me, the public health sector has not necessarily had a culture of communicating with the media. So this means that in this time where everything is so condensed, they've had to create a different way of dealing with the media. So you may go to a press conference, you may have a question, you may have a follow-up question that you may not be able to ask at the time. And trying to find the chief medical officer or the head of epidemiology is not proving to be an easy thing, especially because they're involved in their own planning for the pandemic. So it's that when you do get these officials, they are either very busy, they can't share as much time with you as you'd expect. And so you have gaps in the information that's coming out. So it's on both sides that I guess that some of these doctors, some of these public health experts need to develop a better relationship with the media in terms of actually being able to communicate with the media, freeing up some time, and really just being able to share the information more freely. So yes, so what that shows up as well is training, which is a major weakness in our system. I think that throughout the region, training is viewed by many media organizations as an expense, not as an investment. And it shows up now in even the way that some journalists put together their questions. You're finding that they don't quite have the time, or they don't quite appreciate what it takes to really ask that deep, probing scientific question. Maybe it's fear for not being a part of the scientific community, not understanding some of the jargon, but I think that this is something that we definitely need to improve as we go forward. The other thing that I wanted to look at is news consumption. It's a very short point, and it's that online is decidedly the main source and the location for information for the members of the public. Media is engaged in, via telephones, mobile phones, and the platform that is in most use is Facebook, closely followed, I think, by Instagram and then Twitter. Now, this presents a different challenge to the news organizations in that one news organization in Trinidad has had to temporarily lay off staff because the advertising that would normally come through display advertising in newspapers has dropped. It has plummeted. If businesses are not open, they're not going to be advertising. And therefore, it means that a pretty solid source of income, don't mind it has been declining in recent years, is now virtually non-existent. And I think what has to happen now is that the sales and marketing teams of these companies have to find ways to really engage advertisers online so that the companies could stay afloat. It's as simple as that. Threats and challenges, I guess that is a threat. The threat is that advertising in the traditional way has gone down. And so we now have to look at ways to whether it's subscription models, whether it's different ways of getting revenue. But I think that is really important in terms of helping the local media go forward with the employment of different people. If you have more money, you could employ more people who may be more qualified to give you what you want. One of the major challenges to media coverage in this time has been misinformation. In the time of a pandemic, you heard so many things. I mean, anybody here could say they've seen the YouTube video talking about Fauci being a creator of Dr. Fauci in the United States, being a creator of the virus, about Bill Gates being involved in the vaccine. All these kind of things come to you. That might be a glaringly obvious, that is one that is a spook video. But there are other things that keep coming on. People keep throwing stuff at you all the time. Social media is a buzz. And I think one of the key elements of journalism is fact-checking. Fact-checking has become ever more important. And this is especially because of the widespread practice of sharing content and sharing material. We've seen in the recent months where people have shared information based on rumors. And sometimes it sounds so good, but what reporters and journalists and editors have to do is continually do the basics, and that is corroborate your sources and fact check. The domination of the COVID coverage on our airwaves by the US, I would say the US organizations like CNN, MSNBC, those kind of organizations remains kind of in one way very helpful, in another way quite, I would say it has been a little skewing for us because a lot of people tend to take the US scenario and try to impose it here. But what we know about this, virus is that depending on where you are, it acts differently. So I think that it has been important. It has to be an important thing going forward for our public health authorities to continue to provide the kind of information we need that will be specific to our country and to our region, and that would be easier to access. Okay, opportunities. What have the opportunities been as a result of COVID? Well, I think journalists all around have opportunities to do new things. For example, let's talk about the bigger picture. All over the world, the information is showing that COVID has given rise to new products. One case in point, podcasts. I have seen many COVID-related podcasts, many podcasts from different, from the New York Times to the Chicago Sun-Times to the UK Guardian. There have been new products, especially podcasts and videos and all these kind of things that are happening online with a view to giving people more specific information about COVID-19. And I read on Pod News yesterday, which is one of the leading podcast newsletters, that in the United States, more people think that the podcasts that are specifically geared towards the COVID-19 coverage have been giving the best information. So that it presents itself here as an opportunity for the Caribbean. Now, I know that we are not especially on the curve with podcasts as yet, but I know that it's becoming more and more popular, particularly among the younger segment of the community. I've seen where in newspapers, for example, they've added different pages that speak specifically to COVID issues. Every day there's a question of the day. There's a question and answer by a public health expert or an epidemiologist or somebody else within the health system. There is a lot of effort on trying to run a campaign, for example, by Guardian Media, a campaign to wear your mask. That is something that has become prominent for them. And I think that over the Newsday, a lot more emphasis online for stories that are related to COVID-19 and what to do. That has been very, very prominent on those two media, and also with the Trinidad Express, which is the other leading daily paper here. One of the things that we have done at Trini Good Media is that we recognize that there is a need for probably a deeper understanding of what's going on behind the scenes with COVID. And we started a program that ran for about 10 to 12 weeks called Over the Hump, where we went behind the scenes of different sectors to see how they were affected by COVID-19. So what we did, we started off with food and agriculture because we heard people expressing doubts about the supply chain, about whether we'd be able to keep up with food supplies, what happens if the supply gets disrupted abroad, et cetera, et cetera. We had the Minister of Agriculture on, we had several people from within the agriculture sector. And it is very, very clear to us in Trinidad and Tobago that that is one sector that has not failed. In fact, farming and agriculture has been boosted, I think, by COVID. If you look at the proliferation of farmers markets, the proliferation of people growing their own stuff in their backyards, food has not stopped. What may have happened, however, which I think is interesting, but it's not critical, is that I've spoken to some supply chain people who have said that secondary products, for example, processed stuff. So let's take something like chicken nuggets. You might not get the 10 brands of chicken nugget that you normally get in the supermarket. You would probably get 5. But those things are not crucial to the everyday sustenance of a society. But I think where agriculture is concerned, we were able to capture on Over the Hump how the agriculture sector is coping. We were also able to deal with the issue of carnival. As you know, carnival is one of the pillars of the Trinidad and Tobago economy and culture. And the questions of whether carnival can happen in the way it has, whether we will have a carnival at all, what we can do in the event that there is no carnival. That discussion is ongoing, and I think when we resume Over the Hump, we will be following up with those kind of things. The other product that we created was something that gave people a respite from the COVID coverage. Another element, another aspect, another area that grew in international, I guess, journalism, podcasting, and other areas was comedy and music. Those two areas blossomed. And so what we did was, based on our following, based on our friend following as well, we decided to put together a Sunday evening music program that got a lot of reception. We took people's minds off of what was the gloom of that COVID time, gloom of Corona. We call it Just Music. And I think things like that, initiatives like that, have been very successful. Case in point, many DJs, D-Nice, for example, DJ Jazzy Jeff, DJ Natasha Diggs, for example, these American DJs, DJ Private Ryan here, DJ Gonzo, people like that, DJ Puffy from Barbados, they've been really kind of like a lifeline for a lot of people who have been feeling depressed as a result of the COVID. So there are products, there are opportunities, I think, for different people within the media, not just news media, to create elements, to create products dedicated to one, pandemic coverage, and to two, relieving us of the gloom of the pandemics. So next thing now, the future. I think there are new models for old media coming up. And one of those models is to look at repurposing specialized reporting for the online space. Can we use the information that we have as journalists? Can we repurpose them into smaller bites? Can we put them in different places? Can we give people via push media, via things like WhatsApp, Instagram, can we give people more? Yes, we certainly can. But will they pay for it? Will the subscription model work? Time will tell. But I know in the future, as we go forward, one of the things the media has to do, the media has to find ways to definitely gain some revenue on these new models. Thank you. Bevil?
Thank you very, very much, Franka. Um, a lot of the issues that you've raised there in the media sector, I think, can be transposed into some of the other sectors.
Very much so.
To understand what are the economics of this new normal, what are the dynamics. There was a phrase. Can I ask the other panelists to rejoin me by turning on their videos, please? There was a phrase that you used, "people first," which I think is very applicable to this discussion that we're in here now. And one of the questions that we got very early on was, is attention being paid to the need for people skills as well as the technology or technical skills as we pursue these goals? And I thought that's a very, very relevant question that I want to throw to all of the panelists so you can answer it from your various vantage points. The issue of, as we move toward these more technologically enabled modes of work and operation and interaction, and as the social distancing and public health requirements still circulate around us, how important is it for us to also have, as part of, let's call it the support infrastructure, attention being paid to the issue of our people skills, the different protocols that attend these virtual meetings and virtual interactions and virtual work and performance evaluation? Any thoughts from the panelists, from a government standpoint, from a social media platform vantage point, from the media? Don't all rush the microphone.
Okay, I will start. I will start with saying that one of the key elements actually of being a journalist is having people skills. To get information out of people, you have to know how to approach them. You have to know how to deal with them. And I think that, yes, some protocols actually are no longer relevant, given Zoom, given WhatsApp. I mean, you know, there was a point when, oh, why are you sending me a WhatsApp message? I don't know who you are. When really and truly now, sometimes the only way you can reach a subject is via WhatsApp. So I think that a lot of the protocols that we used to have before have indeed changed, but I think it remains essential to do the basics right. And regardless of whether it's now, whether it's next 5 years, next 5 months, the basics of human interaction, the basics of courtesy in reporting, courtesy in seeking out your subjects, I think that remains, that definitely remains the same.
Bennette, any thoughts on your end? Because you also raised the issue of a focus on digital skills. And I know we were looking at the education component earlier. How much are you seeing this intersection between new technical skills being required, but also new human-to-human interaction skills being required as we go forward? And how might that impact, for example, public policy as it relates to training programs, a curricular investment in human development?
Okay. It was only earlier this week, our Prime Minister here indicated maybe there is a need to change the curriculum in the schools to facilitate the environment that we are in now. I mean, for example, we have a number of students, everybody in the region, because of the COVID-19, has now the students have COVID-19 fatigue. They are staying home and they say, look, man, they need to interact. I was speaking to a teacher this morning and the teacher was telling me, Bennette, I wanted some computers from you, but I need to get back to my students face to face. And she's looking at both, she has no problem with the online facility. but she thinks there has to be a blended method so that the interpersonal relationships with the students you can get back to that again, because she told me clearly this morning, that's about a few hours ago. She said, Bennette, if a student comes to me and tells me she wants me to sign as a trustee or something for her, I mean, I cannot, because of online, she might be my friend, but there is no interpersonal relationship with her for me to come up, or him to say, okay, well, I know you, I know your character, I know your thing. I cannot be seeing you behind a screen and come and sign something and tell you, okay, yes, you are up to date and you are up to par to accept a particular job. There is also the issue of what do we need, what do we want for the region? How are we seeing ourselves going forward? I speak to students all the time, and I told them, okay, what is it that we want? Do we want to teach Pascal? And then when you go to the workplace, they do Pascal, we don't use Pascal anymore. And then some persons cannot even use the mouse. Some people are afraid of the mouse. So there are some soft skills that we need to teach. There is the more advanced skills. So the question is, from a policy standpoint, what is it that we are seeking to do? We hear it from the Caribbean heads of government and the CARICOM Secretariat. We talk about a single ICT space. But what do we need? What do we need to get this going? I've been hearing about that for years, and there's no implementation. That's nice talk. We spoke about, in a modern world now, you are talking about everything going online. Should we begin to teach cybersecurity as a basic? Should we begin to teach apps development? What is it that do we need nationally, regionally, so that we can train our people to meet the challenge that we are now in? So I agree with you, there has to be some public policy issues, but we need to know, where are we destined for? What are we seeking to do? And based on that, we can develop the necessary skill set to facilitate that kind of thing.
Right. No, I think that understanding of where we're going is definitely important. I guess in fora like these, Internet Governance Forum, for example, where we're looking at the implications of some of these considerations on how we frame our approach to use of the internet and guidelines around adoption of the internet in the region, the question that begets is, and who are the we who is framing the where are we going? And that,
I wanted to ask Franka a question though.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
she mentioned something about the journalists being either, most of them are generalists, and whether they might be subject matter experts. For example, I watch MSNBC and I see some of the guys there are trained lawyers, but they are journalistic lawyers. And they are able to articulate issues.
I know who you're speaking about. I think you're speaking about Ari Melba in particular, who is,
correct,
I think, was top of his class at Harvard. So I think the challenge that the media will face now, media owners have to sit down and decide what they want the media to look like. I've always said it. I have to say, when I worked at the BBC, when I was living in the UK, I met so many people with so many specializations. Like, you get people in who are interested, you're able to attract people to the media. And I think in the last probably 10 or 20 years, in maybe the Caribbean as a whole, we haven't really done enough to attract that kind of person. So I remember we had one year, we had an internship with a young doctor. Can I tell you, he was one of the best interns that I ever had, because he had a sense of curiosity and he was able to bring a logical way of thinking to the way that he would handle his stories. And I found that was refreshing. But of course, he went back. He's now a doctor at the Port of Spain General Hospital. So no chance of him going back to journalism. I mean, and plus the pay is not very good. Journalism is not, you're not going to get rich in the Caribbean being a journalist. So I think that it's media owners now to really look at what they feel the media needs to look like, what kind of journalists they want, what are the products they expect, and really start looking at younger people at university. That's how I became a journalist. And they came to UB. There was there was a program with CCN Group, which is the Trinidad Express, and I never left journalism. That was back in the 90s. So I think that more needs to be done to attract a more diverse range of people. I wouldn't say smarter, but a more specialized thinker, and we definitely have to start paying them better.
Yeah.
But let me ask you though, as a follow-up question.
Yes.
if I were to specialize as a, let's say, a legal journalist in the region, don't you think that my pay, my on-air journalism would be very limited, because it's only when a particular legal case comes up I can come on, or otherwise what happens to? No,
I think an understanding of the law is very important. And I think one of the areas coming up, particularly for, I don't know if in other islands that they're going through the whole cybercrime scenario, those bills that are passing through, also libel, which is something that keeps coming up as a result of people putting things on social media. I think that we need lawyers to be in our corner more than ever, given the ubiquity of social media and the dangers that most people don't recognize lie within.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Bennette?
But I would love to hear what our Facebook guy has to say about that, particularly.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to frame, I wanted to frame one of the, because there's a question as well, and you'd have seen it, Hector, and I just want to read it out for the audience, and it allows us to tie in some of these issues. One of the online viewers has said, as indicated, I have a major concern about Facebook's capacity to separate its platform persona from its social media persona, and the apparent inability of the or limited capacity of the general public to understand the differences between these two personas. This is in the context of sharing official information and our dependence on Facebook for news that can be official or unofficial, fake or real. Any comments on this? That was the question I wanted to pose on behalf of one of the participants to Hector.
Yeah, of course. Let me just mention, I just want to spend 20 seconds mentioning that social skills are super important in our opinion. Everyone in this forum wants to have an internet that is free, that is open, that is safe, and that's at the core of Facebook's mission, to give the power to people to build community and bring the world closer together. I think that social skills like assertiveness, like critical thinking, empathy, responsibility, and kindness are essential to be someone to be a digital citizens of the 21st century. We have programs like the Boost with Facebook, like the Shimi's Business, and other digital citizenship programs that emphasize the importance of this type of skills. So if you're going to transform an idea into a product with a technical skill, you'll be able to sell this product and build the trust with your stakeholders, with the interpersonal and the people skills that will make you a living. The difference between the Facebook persona and the company persona. So you can have on Facebook, in Facebook, it's profile based. So you cannot have fake names on Facebook. And if there are, we take them down. And you can have pages which are based on your company. On Instagram is different, because Instagram is not based on the person or the company, but on interests. So there can be profiles of the pet of someone, for example, and that account is being managed by someone else. But at Facebook, we make sure that even your name, the name that you are expressing on your profile, has to be your name. If that doesn't happen, we can suspend your account. Was there other question for me?
The issue of official information and fake news circulating on the platform. And yeah. I want to add one more thing to that, Hector, because it came up in a previous conversation around this topic in the region. and how can the region play a part in helping to determine or assess fake versus real information on the platform?
Okay. So fighting misinformation is a very important problem that we take very seriously. In 2016, we started our third-party fact-checking program with working with the International Fact-Checking Network. And the three things that we do when we find fake news is that first, we remove when content violates Facebook's community standards and ads policies, such as some content that might be considered as hate speech, fake accounts, and terrorist content. We remove it from our platforms. We do this to ensure the safety, authenticity, privacy, and dignity of the people that use our platforms. Second, we reduce. We want to strike a balance between enabling people to have a voice and promoting an authentic environment. When misinformation is identified by our fact-checking partners, we reduce its distribution within newsfeed and other surfaces. And third, we inform. We apply strong warning levels and notifications on fact-check content so people can see what our partners have concluded and decide for themselves what to read, trust, and share. So that's what we're doing, but also we think that users have a lot to do in terms of education and digital skills to help identify these fake news. We as citizens of the 21st century, we must increase, and this is what I was mentioning, the social skills that we need are important also to define, to help have the critical thinking that's necessary to differentiate what's fake news and to help us report it, and a source or a news that comes from a trusted source of information. And also during COVID-19, we have deployed a series of efforts and initiatives to help people get authoritative information. So what does it mean? During COVID-19, we launched the COVID-19 Information Center, which is at the top of your Facebook app. There you will find the latest information and recommendations from the World Health Organization. So we are trying to give people more tools to access to this type of information and try to reduce the effects that fake news or harmful content can have in the offline world.
All right. Any other comments from our panelists?
Yeah, I kind of think that, Hector, I feel that there needs to be a stronger initiative where that is concerned in the Caribbean. And I feel that the fact-checking thing is all well and good, but we've seen globally how long Facebook takes to deal with issues and with accounts that are disruptive. And I feel that in the Caribbean, I don't know if we're kind of immune from it, because I often find that some of the things that Facebook looks to take down are not the really offensive things. And I feel that we need to have some kind of, maybe some kind of regional effort where that kind of fact checking, that kind of hate speech, that kind of everything, that needs to happen specifically for the Caribbean. We just had a general election in Trinidad and Tobago, and so much of the hate speech that was spewed was on Facebook. And there are certain pages that are known for this, and I know people have made complaints, and those pages are still up and still existing. So I feel that, I mean, I know that we often get lumped with Latin America, which is something that I feel that now we could start unlinking ourselves from Latin America. We are the Caribbean. The region needs, I think, specific attention. I think, you know, your head of diversity is from Trinidad. So I think that that's a suggestion. You know, we need to have more, we need to be able to do more where that is concerned.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Franka, for your comments. I'll make sure to work on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that one of the reports that I received, this would have been in the lead up to another Facebook participating webinar earlier, was that sometimes it's difficult when dialect or Creole or local expressions are used for foreign teams to determine if it's offensive or not. And so I think it is actually very, very important that the media mobilizes itself regionally to offer that fact checking and hate speech detecting service. I'm not sure, and Hector, maybe you can share with us what will the modalities of such an association, whether it's through volunteer or through actual a firm like Trini Good Media or something like that doing it. But I think it'll be useful to create some level of awareness as to if there were a mobilization of persons who were trusted media professionals and practitioners capable of discerning language within the region that can be considered offensive or hurtful or harmful, that they would have the opportunity to help accelerate the removal of such content from your platform. It plays a really big part in Caribbean communications, as your data would show. In fact, one of the questions we have is, can the data you're collecting on small businesses or other global trends be disaggregated to show the region, the Caribbean region more specifically, or Caribbean countries in particular? That would be extremely helpful. Any response to that question from Ria Yoching? Can the data be deaggregated to show Caribbean profiles and trends?
Can the data that you're collecting on small businesses be disaggregated to show a region or a country in particular? No, we don't have specific surveys on Caribbean countries. This is one of the reasons that I wanted to show you global trends and some Latin American and African examples.
Okay.
For Franka, I want to tell her that my team is proposing to have a roundtable on content policy. I think that our team will be working with the CTU to have a roundtable on content policy, and we'll make sure to invite you and any member of this forum to participate, to have some input on how to update and enforce in a better way our community standards.
I would welcome that. Thank you.
Yeah, we expect to make progress on that in the next couple of weeks. And the vision of the Caribbean, I think it has permeated a lot at the highest levels of our company. I want to tell you that our head of diversity and inclusion globally at Facebook is Maxine Williams. She's from Trinidad and Tobago. And we have spoken with her. She's very interested in the work that we're doing with you in the Caribbean. She's one of the panelists who will be opening some of our events. So I understand what you're saying. The Caribbean is a region with very specific needs. We've heard from, we hear you on that regard, and we'll make sure that in this roundtable that we'll be hosting with you, the voice of the region is heard on how we can improve and enforce better our community standards.
That's great. That's excellent to hear.
Excellent.
Franka, question for you. You referred to, when you were speaking about the opportunities, you referred to new models for old media. And but you also made reference to the fact that we're seeing the empowerment of independent journalists. Selby Wilson asked this question. I think it has to do with the economics of how these new media models will actually emerge and be sustained. What is the likely impact on advertising revenues for media houses? The advertising has played such a big part in the funding or financing of the media as we know it. But under the current disruptions, you're seeing, as you said, the dramatic fall off in advertising revenues at the same time that we're making calls for things like better specialization in the field, attracting a new type of voice and a new type of methodology to data collection and fact checking. What do you see as the impact of advertising revenues? And could you elaborate a bit more on the models that you see emerging to sustain the new journalism?
Okay, so thank you for that question, Mr. Wilson. Yes, the traditional methods of advertising, display advertising, for example, where companies would take out their ads in the papers, take out a full page ad, those are really now coming to a really critical point of reduction. And I can say that online revenue has not matched, at least in the Caribbean, has not matched that revenue that was that was obtained before by traditional advertising. So I think what has to happen, if you look at places, for example, like the New York Times, I know it is probably a chalk and cheese comparison, but it bears studying that the New York Times has been a real miracle in these times. In the last, I think just before Trump came in, we have to say that there's a Trump factor. The coverage of Donald Trump, for example, has created more subscribers. They have more subscribers more than ever before. And I think it's down to their great political reporting. Okay, there's that. However, the New York Times and other such companies have specialized areas that people are willing to pay for exclusively. So for the New York Times, it's the cooking section or the crosswords, which I was shocked to see how much those specific things attract people for subscription. So I think what our media needs to do is really to understand what our unique selling points are. Work from a subscription model. It would not happen now. You wouldn't get the same level of revenue that you're getting now, that you're normally getting from traditional advertising, but I think it's a long-term project. New products, again, podcasts, again, maybe even subscriber events, things that people will be wanting to pay for, not just in Trinidad, but throughout the diaspora. I think that we have to really look at that as some kind of way of getting revenue back. There's also smaller things you can do, like Patreon accounts. Patreon is this facility that enables people to subscribe to you, give what they feel on a monthly basis. There's so many other things that are now coming into play, but because we haven't had to do it for long enough, we don't know the success. So I would say that we have to try, and the first thing that would come with it is developing products that people are willing to pay for.
Right. Very good.
I hope that answers the question.
So it does, and it answers it in an open-ended way because we're still all learning and seeing what lies ahead. So I think that's a very good answer. We've come to the end of this panel discussion. I really want to thank you all and invite you to just give us one sentence closing remarks, and don't make it a long, super punctuated sentence. Frank will be very upset. But one sentence closing remark on the subject and on your views going forward as we wrap up this panel discussion on education, media, and innovation in the COVID era. Starting with Hector, then Bennette, then closing with you, Franka.
We think that digital skills are the great equalizer and the great democratizer. I think digital skills have the power to transform millions of businesses in the world and help the Caribbean to go to the next stage of development. I'm super grateful for this opportunity to speak to you, and thank you all.
Thank you, Hector. Digital skills, top of the priority list. Bennette.
Yeah, and I think that is where I was going to. I think fundamental to this whole process going forward, especially as we're looking forward to this whole transformation of our economy digitally. Digital skill is fundamental, and we have to begin to reposition ourselves in how we teach our students, how we develop our societies, and develop that kind of skill set that we need. Otherwise, we'll be left behind, and the Caribbean will again continue to be lagging while we're moving forward. I want to thank you so much, CTU, for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Appreciate your contributions, Bennette. Thanks again, and always good to see you. Ms. Franka Phillip.
Well, I want to throw back again to what both Hector and Bennette had said about understanding technology. I think it is a national imperative now that we must understand technology and understand our role in having digital skills. I think where the media is concerned, we need the public support. We need the public to appreciate that, okay, it's easy to sit in their living room and criticize a journalist for doing whatever. But I feel that when the media is making the outreach, when we're creating those new products, that people actually start paying for them. Put your money where your mouth is. And,
yeah, I agree.
you know, put your money where your mouth is and help. Because without that kind of revenue, there's no improvement. And to the ICT community, Ria had asked how we could get involved. Well, I think the ICT community just reach out and do fun things. So like how the UE students have hack days. Why journalists can have a hack day too, right? Things like that. You know, engage us in the way that you would engage children.
Correct. Yeah,
that is sure to help. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Yes.
You're most welcome. Innovate and invest in our own, I think, is the takeaway there. And I think that really is a great way for us to end this discussion. We need to invest in the media, in the education sector, and in the innovation we want to see in the Caribbean. This has been I think this is the last panel in this 16th Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. We've been looking at the issue of education, media, and innovation perspectives on internet governance, local digital content, and internet entrepreneurism. I want to hand you over to Mr. Nigel Casimir, who will take us through the final session for today. Thanks again to the panelists. It was really good sharing the platform with you all.
Thank you very much, Bevil and the panel, Bennette, Franka, and Hector. Thank you very much.